So I have a very disappointing situation here. I was all excited. I was on the edge of having this thing running, driving. I actually thought I could use it this weekend, but I am not going to be able to use it this winter at all. I encountered a major problem when I test ran the unit. I propped it up in the air with a crane, put it up on jack stands. My chain tensioner idea, that worked out great. That's beautiful. So I thought, okay, first I tried to drive it on the floor, and I had this awful clunking sound. And the engine was laboring, trying to push the machine forward. So I thought, all right, let's put it up on jacks and let's run it up in the air and spin the track. So I did that. I had this awful grinding sound. Sounded like a thrashing machine, complete with a bunch of clunking and banging. Then it got to the point where the track locked up and the engine would not move the machine at all. I was just smoking the clutch. Hung the machine from the crane, sitting behind me, hanging from the crane, and I discovered what's going on. The studs are ripping into the top of the tunnel. Even though I planned for that and measured for that, if you remember, if you're already watching video 117 or whatever I'm up to, first off, you're amazing. But back in another video, I was showing how when I was putting the sled together, how I took a piece of track, test track, put the cleats in, put the studs in, put the drive shaft in, hooked it all up to the chain box, and then took that piece of track and set it on top of the drive axle, locked it in on the drive cog, on the cog teeth, and I had enough clearance between the top of those studs and the tunnel to put my fingers through there, and I thought, I'm golden. Something changed. Now the studs are literally ripping into the tunnel. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here she is. You see the marks in the paint? See where the studs are actually jammed. You can see up in the front where they're actually jammed into the metal. I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed. My measurements were, I really don't understand. I don't get it. This close. And now I'm miles away. So that's one of the things about building and designing a machine from scratch with just a thought in your head. You're going to run into frustrations like this. And that's part of the reason I'm making these series of videos, is so that you can see my successes and you can see my failures. And maybe you can circumvent some problems that you might have that I experienced, and your build will go a lot better and a lot faster. That's the hope anyway. So now I'm like, okay, what do I do? My studs are sticking up too far out of the track. That's obvious. When I'm looking at the machine in this position right now, it looks like the cleats that I build will barely clear the underside of the tunnel without hitting. My track is tight, but the top of the track wants to bungee. It wants to slap. That could be caused by the fact that I dropped the bogey wheels down an inch. And now the bogey wheels, if you look at how they're orientated, can you see that? One is up and one is down. There's like a twist to them. It could be that those upper bogey wheels were designed to be idler wheels. And this stupid guy didn't realize that. So when that track is properly tensioned, the front wheels on that bogey assembly right there are up, and they make contact with the underside of the track as it's going across the top to keep it from slapping. And the bottom ones put down force to keep the track tight from the bottom. That's the only thing I can think of. Although when the machine is sitting on the ground on its weight, all four bogey wheels are flat. So maybe I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it. Either way, I got major problems. I cannot drive the machine. Newer snowmobiles, the tunnel, the height of the tunnel from here to here is a lot taller. And that's like Tim's track sled, for example. His tunnel height from the bottom of his, let me see if I can figure it, from the bottom of his to the top up here is 10 inches. I'm lucky if that's 6. Back in the day, they didn't have big paddles on the tracks. I mean, look at my track. It looks like a conveyor belt, okay, at FedEx or something. They didn't have big, tall paddles for snow, and they didn't have big, springy suspension systems either. So they didn't need a real tall track, and these sleds always sat low to the ground. I remember the nightmare of driving these older machines with your knees under your chin. So the way this thing is designed, it will not accommodate my studs. And as far as I know, I have the shortest studs that you can get for a snowmobile track. So I called Tim up because 2 heads are better than 1. And so we mulled over some ideas. One of the ideas was taking the studs out. Tim's idea. Take the studs out. I'm like, dude, then I'm where you are, or were, with no studs and sitting there spinning on bare ice. Yeah, but you got the cleats. I said, the cleats don't dig into ice. I said, the cleats are there to act as paddles to give me forward motion in snow, not ice. I gotta have the studs. There's no way around it. So then we talked about chopping the center section out of the cleats, or the outer edges of off the cleats, and keeping just the center section. Nope, it's not enough surface area width to give me any sort of grip in deep snow. I had an idea, why don't I pull out all the studs, because none of the studs are running under any of these bogey wheels, okay? So why don't I pull out the studs and stack some washers underneath the stud, and that will allow the stud to be shorter and it won't stick outside of the cleat as much. Right now, they're sticking out. You can see them from here. See them? They're sticking out a 1/2 inch past the cleat. So the cleat is a 1/2 inch thick. This material right here is a 1/2 inch thick. All right, that's the cleat. And then the stud's another, so it's 1 inch. I got 1 inch sticking out above this track. That would be real time consuming and a pain in my butt, but I actually might do that. But because I would feel more comfortable doing that, because right now I think the studs are sticking out too far, And what's going to happen is the studs are going to want to, when they bite into the ice, they're going to want to roll. And I could rip a stud right out of the track, as soft as this track is. So I think I am going to put washers under the heads of every single one of those studs to make them shorter, as much as the threads on the stud will let me do. Then I'm about to sit down here and pull a couple of them out and experiment and see how many washers I can put under them and get away with. The washers are not going to interfere with my bogies or my drive cogs in any way, shape, or form. So that's one way of doing it. Then Tim had a great idea. He suggested that I take everything off the top of the tunnel, engine, battery, electronics, everything, gut it just down to flat tunnel. And right now, the 4 studs on the track are what are scraping the tunnel. He said, cut the top of the tunnel off. You know, leave a lip on the side. Cut the top of the tunnel off. And then raise it up. Make a frame out of angle iron. High wall angle iron like this. And raise up the top of the tunnel. Make like a box that the studs ride in. The rest of the track doesn't matter because that's clearancing. It's just the studs. Make a box and raise the lid basically an inch or 2. And then reattach everything to that. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. That should solve the problem. Now the studs will not hit anything because they will be basically running inside their own little tunnel. So I have to take everything off the top of the machine and do a bunch more welding and fab work. In addition to pulling out all the studs and putting washers under the heads so they don't stick out of the cleat so far. Ideally, I would like those studs just poking out past the cleat. And that's what I'm going to go for. So I got a whole week's worth of work to do that. Thankfully, it's not going to cost me any more money. I have a big sheet of 16 gauge sheet metal sitting over here. I have the angle iron I need to do this. Shouldn't cost me a red cent, but it's just going to be time consuming. So yeah, that's the issue. I'll show you the right now it's obviously up on the crane. Oh, I will show you this. Did I show you this? I don't remember if I did or not. This is my little gas tank. So I got this on wish.com, all right, and everybody's like, oh yeah, you can get screaming deals on wish.com, but they'll sock you with the shipping, and then it takes almost a year for you to get your product. This is probably a month and a half, maybe, since I ordered this. It's a little 3/4 gallon spare gas tank. So if I'm out on a long trip, you know, I want to go trail riding with this thing eventually, next winter. And you know, I'm not near any gas stations or anything like that. I'll have at least 2 tanks full of gas in addition to the full tank on the machine. I should be good to go. This mounts right on the back here. I can't do it now because I'm up on the crane. But the little carrier it comes with, it mounts right on the back of the handlebars. It's perfect. Perfect. So I'm super stoked. So I got that. So that was a good thing. My chain tensioner I designed and built from scratch. That worked perfect. Can't ask for anything better there. But like I said, I'll show that to you later after I get all this work done and get the unit back up on jack stands to spin the belt. So here goes nothing.